Hello the internet, and welcome back to the channel and another video by me, Chris, or as my mummy used to call me, and often still does, Chrissy, a name I hate. Sorry, I can't use that one. It's take two. Hello the internet, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to today's video by me, Chris, or as this article once described me, a YouTuber. Alright, I've been recognised. I am professional. I finally made it. Anyway, today's award aware of video is about... So, I want to discuss why there is never, or at least never seems to be anyway, a good adaptation of video games to the silver screen, or even TV really, to be honest. Every single one seems to be subpar at best. Okay. So recently I watched the new Uncharted movie with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, and something struck me a little bit. So I went back and played the first 3 games of Uncharted, and I'm about halfway through the 4th one as well. Just because I wanted to confirm something and make preparations for this video. And let me tell you, I had some thoughts regarding this movie. Now, I just want to state for sort of full disclosure, as a movie on its own, I would give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. It was, I guess, enjoyable way to spend 2 hours. But as an adaptation of Uncharted, the series, it's awful. It's awful and just did not work. The first big problem I really want to talk about, and I feel this affects quite a lot of adaptations, not just Uncharted, but a fair few others as well, but Uncharted was really what made this sort of stick in my mind, so I'm going to use that as the first example here, is that I feel these adaptations aren't made for us, the gamers. Which kind of makes sense, I suppose, but hear me out on this one. I feel that a lot of these movie adaptations of video games just sort of strip mine the source material for all of the best bits, take the characters and maybe the basic outline of the narrative, and then completely and utterly disregard the source material. Uncharted is a fantastic example of this. They take the main characters of Sully, Nate, and even Chloe, and some of the best action set pieces from across the 4 games, and then kind of mush them all together to make this weird bastardization of the series that has no real relevance to any one game in particular, and actually has just told its own original story, as opposed to being a direct adaptation of any one of the games. The Tomb Raider films, including Angelina Jolie's and the rebooted one, and also the Fassbender Assassin's Creed films do this as well. They almost completely abandon the source material to tell an original story, which, on the face of it, isn't actually that bad of an issue, but let me explain why I think it's become a problem. So let's just jump back a moment to where I said that they're not making these movies for you, the gamer. They're making them for a broader demographic of movie-going audiences who aren't necessarily as familiar with the source material as you are. The problem is what they then do is abandon the source material, and sure, they sneak little references here and there, like for example in Uncharted, Nolan North appears in one scene and makes a little joke. And yeah, that's cool and all, and it allows sort of the gaming community and fans to sit there and act all clever and be like, haha!
I understood that reference.
But ultimately, other than little Easter eggs, they're making the movies for a movie-going audience. What I've noticed is that this means they normally drop the weirder aspects of these games. So the 3 I've mentioned already are great examples of this, actually. Uncharted, the games, explicitly have a supernatural element to them. The 4th game is the only one that doesn't have that. Tomb Raider, both the original games and the 2013 reboot series, have explicitly supernatural elements in them. So the new rebooted Tomb Raider film is loosely based on the 2013 Tomb Raider game. It takes the best action sequences from the game, and the most recognisable action sequences from the game, because, you know, they're good action sequences, and then loosely tells the story. But they remove all of the supernatural elements surrounding the island of Yamatai and the Empress and how she passes on her essence and whatnot. Assassin's Creed actually did the same thing by dropping the modern day components and completely getting rid of the Animus sort of genetic history framing device that the entire games are based around. Now, what I feel this does is it strips these properties of what makes them unique. These are the things that make these properties stand out against all the other generic action-adventure series out there, whether they be movies, games, or whatever. And by stripping them, you just turn them into generic action-adventure movies. Like, there's no sort of individuality to it. Why would they do this? Well, personally, I'm not so sure, but I kind of understand it, that a movie-going audience might not be so willing to accept that these films are played completely straight right up until the end, and suddenly, wham, supernatural. But the Indiana Jones films had these back in the 80s, where, they were searching for the Ark of the Covenant, and it was only right at the end that it became an explicitly magical supernatural item. The same with The Last Crusade. It was just a standard action-adventure film right up until the end, so I feel like they're doing movie-going audiences maybe a disservice by thinking that it's limiting the broader demographic appeal they could have by dropping the supernatural elements. I'm not sure, and I just hit myself in the glass. Okay, moving on. Casting. So, I think all these problems are linked, but let's talk about casting, and then I'll mention why I think everything here is connected in a way. So, specifically, let's talk about the Uncharted films, okay? Tom Holland. This hurts me. I love Tom Holland so much. He is my favourite Spider-Man. Spider-Man No Way Home is potentially my favourite film ever made. I absolutely adore it and him. But he is not a good Nathan Drake. And Mark Wahlberg is not a particularly good Sully either, if I'm honest. I feel Tom Holland didn't really understand Nathan Drake as a character. So he actually did, to quote him in an interview, he said that Nathan Drake was a very serious character and carried a lot of gravity with him when he entered a room and whatnot, and when he entered the scene. So he wanted to try and emulate that. And I read that and just went, what? Where have you been? Nathan Drake isn't that. Nathan Drake is always portrayed as like a, frankly, arrogant, cocky smartass who is always the one who's making the jokes, always the one trying to bring some sort of levity to the situation. Now, when the actual film came out, he was a bit better. This interview was like a pre-release thing, but in the actual film, it wasn't quite that bad, but he still didn't really nail Nathan Drake. And I think part of the problem comes from the fact he admitted he'd never played the Uncharted games, and also admitted that whilst reading a synopsis of the plots of them, he never actually played the games even after he got cast in the role, because he stated he did not want the presentation of Nathan in the games to affect his characterization on screen. He wanted to come up with effectively an original character based on Nathan Drake. And the problem is he did that. So what he created wasn't Nathan Drake. Mark Wahlberg is kind of very similar. He actually has a history of being somewhat against video games. He's stated in the past he doesn't really see the point of them, and he thinks people should be more proactive with what they do to choose to do with their time and whatnot. So there's nothing really more I want to say about that. I don't think he really cared about, nailing the character of Sully, to be honest. Unfortunately, what this means is you end up with actors who have no idea what their characters are supposed to be like, but more importantly, have no concept about the world that these characters are supposed to inhabit. Now, before anyone says it, there is one glaring exception to this, and that is the Witcher TV series. Henry Cavill? I think it's Cavill, gushes about how much he loves Geralt and The Witcher as a series and the lore surrounding it. He has played the Witcher games extensively, understands the fundamental lore and the fundamental existence of his character within the game world and the other characters within the game world and what they represent. Now, crucially as well, he was actually listened to when he gave feedback about the character and the presentation of the world on screen, because they recognised that he knew what he was talking about. So the producers and the people actually making the film actually bothered to listen to him and his advice. And frankly, they nailed it. The Witcher is an amazing TV show. I love it. And so does my wife, actually. She's really caught on with it. It's incredible. It's incredible. What makes it incredible is that the people making it clearly had respect for the source material, though. Which is now then what leads me on to my next point, which I think is sort of a grander point which ties all of what I've been talking about today together. the people making these films and the production companies that actually fund them have no respect for games, or the source material, or frankly, gamers either. That's why they're not making it for us. Can you for 1 second imagine them doing to, say, Lord of the Rings what they've done to Uncharted? Just taking the broad strokes of the story elements and the lore and the world and creating their own original concept and story. They would never, ever, no one would do such a thing. Confirmed, by the way, with a Lord of the Rings superfan, my wife, this would be extremely upsetting. Now, in my mind, of course they would never do this to a book series. Yes, they leave elements out, because adaptions are always adaptions, but they at least try to nail the lore of the world and also the story. They actually try to nail the story and give you a fairly decent adaptation of the story in the books, not just creating their own, which is effectively at that point fan fiction. And I feel the reason they wouldn't do this is because books have more prestige than games. Books are given more respect than games are. Okay, so controversial, maybe, opinion time here, but I feel some of the older people making these films, and certainly maybe the production companies financing these films, still have this odd, outdated, stereotypical view of gamers as annoying grown-up man-children still living in their mum's dimly lit basement whilst they play with their other equally immature friends online. And it's just such a stereotype at this point. I mean, you still have politicians trotting out the same arguments every time there's a mass shooting or every time there's something going on. Video games are still regularly blamed for mass shootings and an increase in violence and aggression in the world. And it's simply not true. We all know that, and study after study has proven that as well. And yet every time something happens, the same tired excuse comes out. Now, if those politicians feel like that about video games, I think it's fairly safe to say there's going to be people within the filmmaking world who also feel like that about video games. I still feel like there's some people who feel that the gaming industry is this super niche little market still struggling to find its way in the world, when, in reality, for some context, the gaming industry makes more money than the movie industry and the streaming industry combined. It is an incredibly lucrative business to be in. Because of this, they can actually afford to pay, good writers, whether that be script writers, storyboard artists, or world builders. I mean, let's just look at some of the recent ones that have come out. The Last of Us, Horizon Zero Dawn / Forbidden West. All the other games from Naughty Dog, the Uncharted games, if we're talking about them, they're fantastic. God of War, many of the Final Fantasy games, and any other number of just amazing story-driven games that exist in the world today. I believe, and have believed for a long, long time, that video games are an art form. They are art, the same way movies are, or TV, or books. And they should be treated as such, with the same level of respect and reverence. And to confirm, this is happening. Year on year, video games are being taken more and more and more seriously. And series like The Witcher show that it can be done. But I feel this odd way that a lot of people look at games is causing these adaptions to just fall apart at the seams. Being made by people who have a fundamental misunderstanding of the characters, a fundamental misunderstanding of the lore, and frankly, a fundamental misunderstanding of why people enjoyed to play these games in the first place. And until that changes, until people, I think, in these positions of power start taking the video game world seriously, and, the demographic of gamers who want to see their adaptation done, we're not going to get many good adaptions. I wouldn't, at this moment in time, hold out much hope, to be honest. I know at the moment there is a Last of Us series, which is, I believe, going to premiere later this year. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I read yesterday that there's a Horizon Zero Dawn series in pre-production, and my reaction to it, considering Horizon is potentially up there as one of my top 5 favourite games ever in terms of storytelling, I heard that there was this TV show, and I did this. I will not hold out much hope, but I can't deny that I'm maybe getting a little excited that things are starting to change. Until then, though, you can join me here moaning about these things, just, for the hell of it. I am a YouTuber with not many subscribers, and I make these videos for fun, so I'm not sure really what my authority is to criticise, but here we go. If you got this far, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully you can give the video a like or even a subscribe. That would be fantastic. Until the next time, though, I will see you later. Bye! Welcome to the end plate. If you want to watch more of my content, click here for my latest video, or here for something YouTube thinks you'll like from my catalogue. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.